Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the RUCKCast. My name's Jim Palmer. Today, I want to do something for me, actually. Um, you can probably guess if you're watching this. What I want to talk about today is Hamina reporting. Now, recently, the Ruckus Managed Networks team transitioned the design tool to Hamina. And as such, we've been generating a whole lot of reports and sending them to a whole lot of customers and a whole lot of partners and a whole lot of people. And one of the things that we've run into is every time we do this, especially with somebody who, more importantly, almost exclusively with people that have no idea what Hamina is. They don't know what Hamina does. They don't know how to use Hamina. And what we found is I end up spending like 10, 15 minutes walking people through what it means to get a Hamina report. And so I wanted to take the time today to go through this and record it. And that way, anybody who is running into the same struggle, into the same thing, has the ability to maybe, say, hey, you know what? Here's this video, here's this guide on what it means to get a Hamina report, especially the online one. One of the things that Hamina has done when you do a design, a network design, switches, APs, all that jazz, is in the past, you'd usually get a PDF. You get a created report. It would be really cool. It'd have 100 pages and they would look at about 4 of them and then just kind of ignore the rest because, quite frankly, it's kind of boring. And so it was a whole lot of work and a whole lot of effort to really get into these reports. And so what Hamina has is they have an online version. And then you can still get the PDFs. But quite frankly, I only have those for documentation for record. What I normally do is I just, we send the links. We send a link to the PDF. We send a link to the online report. And then, of course, the next thing we get is, oh, well, I don't have a Hamina account. So can you just send me a PDF anyway? Now, fun little fact that we'll lead off here with, you don't need a Hamina account. You don't need a subscription. You don't need a license to look at a Hamina report, an online report. So if you've had this happen to you in the past, if you've done this and you've run into this problem, then congratulations. You've joined a massive club of a bunch of people who are like, yeah, we can't use this. And it's like, no, actually you can. So that's what I want to do today is kind of go through this, and we're going to walk through this here real quick, and real quick as much as we can. And we're going to talk about what it means if you get a link to a Hamina report. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I have a link to a report that I created earlier. So I'm going to copy this link, and I'm just going to come over here, and I'm just going to drop that link right here into my URL. And this is what comes up. Notice I didn't log in. I didn't have to do anything. Now, I've already opened this to make sure it worked, but this one actually has a password. So if you have a password, you need that password ahead of time, that you can go ahead and there'll be a little pop-up window, comes in, says, hey, go ahead and enter your password to gain access to this file onto this online report. And then that way you can secure the report. Now, what I want to do real quick is instead of diving into the report, what I want to look at is I want to kind of go through the layout of what these reports look like. And so as you can see, there'll be a name of the report up here in the top. This one, I just called it the RUCKCast demo design. You can see that right up here in the top. And have the podcast logo, and that logo can be changed by whoever creates the report. So you can put whichever logo you want in there. And then down the left-hand side, we have all these different criteria. Pay attention because you can end up with a lot of different sections. And so let's take a look at that first. I'm going to collapse these sections so that we don't see them. Now, the cool part is, because this isn't a Hamina training session, that I wasn't going to cover this, but all these pages can be modified by whoever created the report. And so you might see a report that has additional fields over here on the left. You might see a report that doesn't have any of these fields. And that's really dependent and based on whoever is creating the report for you and sent it to you. The information's there. They just hide it when they create the report. So that's what we see is we see this menu down the left-hand side. And then across the top is where we're going to see all the information that we need. Now, right now, we don't have anything, but when we get into the report, you're going to see that this is actually critical to know about this upper section here. So we have the menu down the left-hand side, and then we have this upper section kind of up here in the upper left. And those are the two things we really want to kind of pay attention to as we go through this. So let's go through the summary section. There's a bill of materials, which we're looking at here. In this particular design, we got 33 APs, 6 48 port switches. You'll see why here in a little bit. Got a router and some cabling and some cameras and computers. So this is where our 48 port switches came in for 33 APs. We have 33 APs, but we also have 45 other devices that we've added into our network design. And so, but you get a quick glance at this right here. And all of this stuff can be modified by the person creating the report. So for the sake of brevity, I didn't really add much in here, just kind of threw it all together. The next section you might see is the project notes. And this is, some people will put this first. Default is second. But this is kind of the overview of what the report is. And you can put any types of notes in here you want. It's fully featured. And so this one is just this is just a demo of what it looks like. So you have the title of the report and then the project and then some information you want to relay. A lot of times I'll use this to put down any assumptions I've made when I've done a design and said, hey, I'm assuming that, we have all the fiber pathways that I need to get from, my switches and back and forth. It's like, I've assumed that's there, or, we've assumed that, these are the circuits we're going to use. I mean, there's all these different assumptions that we make. And I find that putting it into this project notes section allows me to, have that one place where I can convey to somebody, since they don't read my emails, what that is. Now, this is not to be confused with this next section down here we see called the notes and the zones. This is where we first get into sort of the maps and what it looks like. Now, the next thing I'm going to point out to you is over down here in this bottom right corner, there are some controls that you can use. In this particular case, my map sort of defaulted to where it zoomed in a little bit. So I'm going to come down to here and I'm going to zoom to fit. And that didn't help me. So I'm going to change it over to mouse mode. And then I'm going to use my scroll wheel to scroll in and out. In mouse mode, I can also hold my space bar and it allows me to move the map around to where I want to see. Now, in this particular case, what you're going to see in these notes and zones part of the report is we're going to see some colored dots pop up here. And you can click on those colored dots and it's going to give you some notes for this particular floor plan. Now, you might be asking, and this can be any note you want. And this is, so that way you're like, oh, here's a note here about this section is really going to be Wi-Fi only. So that's why, we're not going to see some other things. There's a note here that this room may get a projector in the future. So you can click on each one of those. Now, you might be wondering, well, what is it? I'm missing some context here. And this is where we need to come up to this top row. And what you'll see is we have a new drop down that's appeared. And so this is still my project of my demo design. But what you'll see is this is the first floor. And as I click on this, we actually see that there are actually 3 floors to this building that I have here. And so I can click onto the second floor and it all changes, it all resets. And as you can see, there's no notes on the second floor. And then we can go to the third floor right here and zoom back out for you real quick. And you can see there's no notes on this one. So we only have notes in that first floor. Now, but this is important because we've introduced the ability to toggle and to change the appearance early on here in the notes and the zones. And so that comes in critical when we start saying, okay, this is great. I have all this stuff. But what about the Wi-Fi? Why are we really here? Let's take a look at the Wi-Fi. And we have a lot of different items in this particular section. We're going to go ahead and close the summary. And we're going to come back here to the AP placement. And now we can see that our APs have popped up. I can click on an AP. This is really cool because it allows me to then see, oh, this is an R350, and it's mounted to the ceiling at 8.5 feet. And what you'll notice is when I try to hover over this stuff, I can see it, but I can't change it because this is a report. This is my ability to take a look at it. If I wanted to see more about this particular access point right here, I can click the show more button and we can start seeing, the transmit power settings, where it's connected to, stuff like that is all contained in, and you can click on each one of these APs and you'll get the same information. So if somebody did the design for you and you want to see how did they do it, how did they handle a specific area or any of the settings or anything like that, you can see here on the AP placement. Now, again, and then clicking off of that, we get back to our main screen. What you'll see is, we have our first floor. I can come in and I can change it and I can take a look at my second floor right here. And I can do the same thing on my second floor. I come back over here. This is access point number 20. And, we get all the information. The other thing we can do is we can also take a look at and we can change and say, hey, when I created this, did I take my time and go through and put in any names? And you can toggle that up here so you can see, or if you don't want to see the labels at all, you can turn those off. And now we don't see any of that stuff. So when we zoom in and we look at this AP, we go, oh yeah, that AP doesn't tell us anything. But if you want to see, you can click on it and we'll see the access point name over here with all the other corresponding details like we had before. There's also a settings button where you can kind of toggle some of those settings. So you can really customize how you want to explore this report on the AP placement stuff, however you want. So that is AP placement. Now, that's cool. And installers want to see this, but what do we really want to see? We want to see our coverage maps. And this is where we see those. Now, we now have introduced a new drop-down field up here, and that is up here in this coverage area up here. So we're still looking at our second floor, but I can toggle this and I can go to my first floor. Back here, zoom back out, extend this up a little bit, and we can see that we're looking at 5 gigahertz. Because this is an R350, I did not include the 6 gigahertz, but if you have a 6 gigahertz AP, you can include that band as well. And so we can toggle between the bands on my first floor. Right now we're looking at 5 gigahertz, and now we're looking at 2.4. And that then allows you to actually see, hey, what are we actually covering? Now, the next thing I'm going to point out is another cool little feature is you kind of go, hey, this is a little lighter green. We have some really darker greens here. We have some in between greens, and everybody kind of goes, well, what is that signal there? In most cases, you'd look at a legend, you go, well, it's in between the sort of, how light green is that, or how yellow is that? And the nice thing about this is we now have down here in the bottom left is our legend. And what you'll notice is right here along the bottom, where these colors are, when I move my mouse into any part of this floor plan, you'll actually see a pop-up, a little slider that comes in, and it tells me, oh, right here at this point, this is a neg 59. And as I run down this hallway with my pointer, I can see that number change. So you'd be like, so anybody can see this report and be like, oh, my office is right here. what would I expect to get in here? I'm about a neg 50, neg 45. So this is a really good, now again, we're looking at 2.4. So we can then come up here, we can change this. We can look at 5 gigahertz and you can kind of be like, oh, look, okay, we're at a neg 67 right here. So that allows you to kind of see where you are. You see that signal. We are a neg 33 in the same room as the AP. You come into the stairs and you're a neg 54 right next door. So I did draw in the stairs and the concrete wall on this one. And so this is this interactive map. And as you go around, what you'll see is that even the access point name will change, and it'll tell you this is where you're seeing it. This is the access point that you're seeing here at that level. So it's not just a random number. It's actually telling you, okay, this is the strongest access point that you're going to see at this particular point in the map. So it's fully interactive. And as we scroll through and we take a look at secondary coverage, I did not design a secondary coverage. When you take a look at tertiary coverage, which I didn't design to either, what you'll see is we still see these same things. And so now we're looking at, oh, what are we seeing here? Access point 8, 6, and 9, and the different channels, the channel bandwidth, and the signal level. So we can see, hey, where are we covered by each one? And when I come down here, we go, oh, we're a neg 47, neg 73, and a neg 76. So that's why we're yellow for our tertiary. Signal to noise, we can look at 5 gigahertz. We can look at 2.4. So it's fully interactive. And as you roll your mouse, across your map, across your floor plan, what you're going to see is that slider down there at the bottom will change. And we can continually go back and forth. We can change floors. We can skip up to the 3rd floor. So we want to take a look at that. It's all interactive. And then the fun part is, the final one I'll tell you about on this particular one, is you can click on an AP and it will show you what type of, in this particular case, the signal to noise we're seeing. We're seeing a neg 49, or not neg 49. We're seeing a 49 SNR, 49 dB. But we can, if we switch back over to the coverage, we can see this is the coverage we're getting off of this single AP. If we want to see the coverage we're getting off of this AP, there you go. You can actually click and you can say, where are we covering? Where's that coverage getting? Where, and you can click on each AP individually and it'll show you all the information for just that AP. And that's the same for the secondary, tertiary, SNR, interference, data rate, same thing. We can see the data rate coverage for that particular one. We can click off of it and then we see for the entire floor. And as working down the list, we have our AP list, which tells us so if you have different models or if you have different mounting, like some are on, all of these are on the ceiling, but you can change it and you'll see all the information. If it's a directional, then you'll see that here in the antenna directional and antenna tilt. You'll see the PoE and you'll see which switch it's connected to. Switch 1, switch 2, switch 3, switch 4, all the way down. We also see the cable length for each particular one. We also get into where we can see the radio details for each AP. When we get down into the AP list and AP radio details, that's not on a map, so we lose our drop downs up here. This is all just a table that you can just, all the information you need, anything you'd want to be able to then, take it out of this report. You can copy and paste the entire thing, and you can script it to send it into your controller and say, hey, this access point is going to be configured like this. So that is all contained in here. One of the favorite ones that people like to see is this client view that's down here. And this is in the last section of the client of the Wi-Fi section. And now this is to demonstrate kind of what a client is going to look like, what type of experience you're going to have with this type of client. And we can come up here and we can pick whether we want that to be an iPhone, an Android, MacBook, whatever one you want. Let's say we're going to pick a Windows laptop we want to see. And we're going to say we're not going to do 6 gigahertz or Wi-Fi 7. And we're going to show the association area. So I can now, when I hover over the map, I see what's known as a roaming man. So I can now click and put my roaming man anywhere on the map that I want. And I'm going to get some information about what I'm looking at. And then this is, if you remember this AP, this is about this blue area, this shaded area is about the coverage area that we had on this AP. And so what I can do is I can grab my little roaming man, and as I move him around, you'll start to see my little window change as we come around. As we see this thing, going around, and what you'll notice is there's some lines that are appearing as I roam throughout my building. I'm going to come down here so we can see those lines a little bit better. The dark blue line pointed up to the AP that has turned blue, is showing us this is the AP that we expect to be associated to. But we can also see these dashed line APs as well. So I can see this one, or I'm connected to this one, but I can see these other three. And so as I roam throughout the building, it will actually start showing you, hey, this is where you're going. This is about where it's going to roam. And this is the experience that you're going to have. Now, what you'll notice is I'm not clicking in each place. I'm actually clicking and holding and dragging my little icon person around as I roam throughout my floor, as I roam throughout my building, and you can start to see what this really kind of looks like. So this is a really cool feature that you can use to show people, and it's all included, and you don't need a license to go through this. BLE, kind of the same idea. You can look at the coverage, secondary coverage, tertiary coverage. If you added in other types of IoT type radios, then we'll also see, there'll be another section that comes up. This particular AP doesn't have but the one. This is what we see. Now, the last section I want to talk about real quick is this switching and cabling. This is actually one of my favorite. And there's a couple of different sections down here. In this particular case, we want to show the switching and cabling locations. And so what we're looking at as we zoom in is we still have our switches right here, and I can click on that and it'll tell me this is switch 5. It has 48 ports. We're using 8 of those ports. It also tells me my PoE budget. So this particular switch, I probably could have done a 24, but we're future proofing. That's what we're going to call it. And then, and it shows when you click on it, you'll see all the darker lines to all the different devices that are being plugged into this switch. Now, what you'll notice is there's some different colors in here. And so to look at that, we're going to take a look at the wired device locations. And what you'll see is we have these sort of pinkish purplish colors. And I'm going to zoom in on these. What we're going to see is these are cameras right here. In fact, this is camera 10, and it's plugged into the 3rd floor switch number 6, and it's getting 12.5 watts. So that can be then decremented from our PoE budget on switch 6. And again, I can't change these. This is just showing me what the designer has done. And as we zoom out and we kind of move over, we can see this is a computer. It's plugged into the 2nd floor switch. So apparently I didn't get that switched around. And it is pulling 12.5 watts. So this is a way that you can also, as a designer, come into these reports and say, hey, did I actually get everything? Did I correct everything? Is everything done? Because I'm going to look at this as if my customer's looking at it. And in this particular case, I didn't. That's fine. The last one I want to cover is the cabling and power details. This is really where the rubber meets the road. I'm perfectly fine with having the coverage heat maps and all the other stuff. But for me, this is where the network is built. And having something like this that I can give to my installer that shows, okay, this is what I'm plugging into this switch 5 or switch 6. And if we want to come and we want to look at some of these other switches, we can come down. We'll look at switch 1 down on the 1st floor. Again, we changed it up here in this upper section. What we're seeing is we have access points. We have computers, cameras that are all plugged in. And this particular one, we're not using any power on the computer, but I am using power for the cameras. And this is all up in this report that I can look at. here and give me an idea of, hey, how is my switches doing? How is all this stuff doing at that level? And I can toggle and I can look at, all the different floors. This particular one, all my third floor computers are all pointed down to this switch. And what you'll see is this switch is consuming 373 watts of power, even though it only has 370. So by looking at this red section here, I know that, I have a problem. It's now been flagged, and I can say, I need to go back and fix that. I either need to, get those third floor computers that are drawing power pointed up to the third floor, or turn to zero, because they're not going to be drawing power. They'll be powered by AC. But this is, gives you all of this stuff. And that is how you can go through a Hamina report and look at all the different details that the designer is trying to convey to you, the end user, the customer, the partner, whoever, so you can see what they were trying to build for your network. Now, I mentioned it earlier that they still have a PDF version. So I want to take a look at that real quick here in the last couple of minutes that we have together. So I'm going to go grab that particular link. This is the same thing. There's a link that I've gotten from my designer, and I'm going to put that here. We're going to open that up. And now I can download the PDF. So we're going to download that. Pops up here. We'll open that up. And we now have a PDF report that is, more aligned to what people want to see. Now, this I enjoy because the notes and the zones that end up out here on the side. So you don't have to click on each one to see what those are. So this is a really cool one to kind of get a summary of what you're talking about. And we have still have the AP placement. So you can give this to your designers, or to your installers. They know where they're going to put the stuff. The coverage maps, they're there. Great. Don't really need them. So we looked at them online. And the reason why I wanted to show you this is we're going to scroll down here through, 35. We're on page 36, all this stuff that, no one really looks at anyway. And now we're into this AP list. And this shows us in a document you can print out just these pages, and you say, hey, this is what my inventory list is going to look like for APs. I have my radio details. I can come down here. So these tables are really handy to have. BLE, we're going to skip those. We're now up to, page 60, 62, all these pages that nobody ever reads because they're just like, oh, it got included and I don't really worry. I don't really need that. Now we have our networking equipment. So this is something you can give to your installers. In addition, and here's our switch that has a problem. We've identified right here on switch 4, it's red. And that tells us that there's a problem. So we can look at where the networking equipment's going, and we can also take a look at the wired device locations of where, these cameras are, the computers, and you can give this to the installer, and the installer knows. So you have the online report, which works really well when you want to review the design, when you want to approve the designs, when you want to send notes back and forth. And the online report, the cool part is I can get a note back from, a customer saying, hey, I don't like this. Can you change this? Can you make that change? I can make the change on my side. And then I just send them a message and I say, hey, refresh your screen. And the online report will pull that change to them. And I don't have to send them a new link. Now the PDF, I have to do that. I have to regenerate the PDF because, well, it's a PDF. But the online stuff can change. And so we can now have maps that we give to our installers, not just for the APs, but also for any other wired devices you want them to install. And then we have our cabling and power details. It shows our routers, our switches. And this is all into a single table, which is really handy because, again, this now becomes a inventory sheet, and we can say, hey, this is how we want to do it. So that is the online version and the PDF version of the Hamina reports. And hopefully you'll be seeing one of these reports. If you haven't already, you'll be seeing one of these reports pretty soon, and you'll be able to, and so that way you can use this sort of guide through and this walkthrough to help you understand how do you utilize this tool? How do you utilize it when somebody sends you this stuff? Because it is really handy. It's very educational. It's very, I love being able to interact with my designs as opposed to just looking at pictures, especially on bigger floor plans where, you have just a ton of offices, and they, you look at a normal 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and you have to like zoom in, and you're like holding up and squinting because you're trying to figure out, like, hey, where is that? Whereas with the interactive one, I can zoom in, I can zoom out, I can look at the other maps that don't have the colors, and I go, okay, this is where that is. And I can go look at the colors, and I can zoom in and out. I can hover my mouse over, and it gives me all the detailed information I need to see right there, right for that. And then there's no more guessing, and it's quick, it's easy. So that's Hamina reporting and how you utilize and how you interact with an online Hamina report. So thank you for sticking with me, and I hope to do some more Hamina reporting or Hamina deep dives on the podcast, because there's some other things that have come along with this tool that I think are pretty cool. And so I want to spend some time and go through that and just help everybody understand when you talk about Hamina, when you're using Hamina, this is kind of the stuff you do. So thanks for sticking with me, and I will see you on the next episode. Hey there. Thanks for listening. If you like the show and haven't done so, please like and subscribe. If you want to contact the show directly, you can email us at RUCKCast@comscope.com. I do read those emails. To learn more about any Ruckus products or services that we've talked about on this or any other prior podcast, please check out our About section of the show or the show notes. And as always, thank you for listening.